breaking the brief. To me, that is like the real takeaway of Super Bowl this year. That like
Mhm.
we cannot approach Super Bowl the way we have historically
Mhm.
because the expectation to delivery ratio, it's not in our favor at this moment. Our being marketers.
Yeah. For sure, for
And
sure.
versus the audience, right? Like,
Yeah.
even the audience, because when the audience had these high expectations, like, "You got me." Like, it's like,
Mhm, mhm.
I'm gonna be more critical of the spots because I'm waiting for it. You got my
Mhm.
attention, right? I'll watch a 60-second spot and be like, "Whose ad is this?"
Mhm.
Where any other day, if I don't know who you are in the first couple of seconds, like, I'm out of here. If I'm not hooked, it's almost
Mhm.
like, I mean, I suppose this is further exacerbated through our media consumption that are social
Mhm.
networking platforms. Like if you're creating content on Instagram or TikTok, the first thing they say is you need a hook. Then you need a second hook,
Mhm.
then open up the hook, and you need another hook. Like it's you constantly hooking the whole time, or people will scroll away. That's what advertisers are fighting on a regular basis. Super Bowl, people are like, all right, I'm here. And
Mhm.
because I'm here, you better wow me here.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
expectations, we don't meet expectations. The delta between reality and expectations is disappointment, not only
Mhm.
for the advertisers, but also for the audience.
Yeah, definitely. That's a perfect segue into the takeaway section. I think you're spot on about that. I do want to add that for me, one of the takeaways here is that Super Bowl is going to increasingly become like a spot that people are angling for, that companies and brands are angling for, because it's one of the last few monoculture events that we have. But I think
Mhm.
that's going to start expanding outward because there's only so many spots and so much attention. So now other brands are going to be looking at different types of events. I'm positing that it's going to be like other like sports events because it's like the one of the few instances where we all have to be paying attention to the same thing. So we have the Olympics coming up in LA in 2 years. I think there's going to be a huge push around that. It's, the first time that it's been in the States, for a really long time. So it's going to be kind of like another Super Bowl. We have the World Cup coming up this year. I'm starting to see that also happening in F1, right? Where we're starting to see all the AI companies fighting for F1 attention, right? Like most of the AI companies are now attached to a car company, right? We have Google with McLaren, we have Perplexity with Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, just Lewis Hamilton for now. But it's showing that like companies are understanding that like sports events are like those monoculture events that they're going to have to start, paying attention to in order to get in front of people. The other thing that's a takeaway for me is how important it is for companies to be paying attention to what's happening in the culture. Like it's not enough that like you're telling people what your product does. Most people don't care about that anymore. They just want to know that like I like the company, right? That was a huge miss here with Ring. Whereas like if you were paying attention to the discourse that's happening, you would realize that a surveillance state is freaking everybody out. So you should not talk about your capabilities to do the things that you can do, right? Like I want to trust that like you're only doing what you have already advertised that you do, which is just, turning on when there's somebody that like rings the doorbell, right? And not just surveilling everything at one time, right? And that's happening culture wise, right? So it's like marketers in particular need to be paying attention to what's happening in the discourse in, America and globally so that like your company doesn't get left out with like, no shirt on because you're not paying attention. And all of a sudden, like you're in a discourse you don't want to be where the CEO has to come out and start saying like, whoa, 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 no, we didn't mean that. Like, and it's like, yeah, you did. You just are like going back on what you said because, people didn't like what you were saying. So
I think that's spot on. I think that's absolutely spot on. If I can add one
yeah.
other thing, I think when I consider Levi's in the midst of this conversation, you have companies that are young and fresh and new and bringing these new exciting things. And you juxtapose that to a brand like Levi's, it's almost 200 years old, that is selling one of the oldest consumer products that we know is denim. But yet the brand is able to find new and inventive ways to communicate its point of view. And when we
Mhm.
talk about staying in lockstep with culture, there is fast culture and there's slow culture. The slow culture are things that anchor you to your existence on this planet. Why do you exist? For a brand like Levi's, this is about progress, right? But what does progress mean today? It might be different than
Mhm.
it was back in the day, but being able to show the receipts of being there the entire time allows you to have credence and the chevrons of having seen a few things in your almost 2 centuries of existence, but also be just as relevant and just as resonant in the discourse in the contemporary cultural zeitgeist as these young guys, these tech guys, because you have a reason for being.
Ugh, love that. That's such a good point. Because I think nostalgia is gonna continue being, like, a big thing, right? Like, Gen Zers are, dressing like the '90s and the aughts, so it's like, on the rise. And then millennial culture is like now that we're starting to get more power, it's like that's becoming the dominant culture, right? Like last time I was walking around, I think it was like a Costco, and I'm like, oh wow, all the jams they're playing. It's like, yeah, because they're playing millennial music now, So and the fact that Coinbase landed on a Backstreet Boys song, like it's showing kind of like they do get some cultural touch points, they're just not getting all of them.
That's right. That's right. I think that's
Um,
the future. I mean, marketing will always be anchored in the best marketing will always be anchored
mhm,
in culture. And to your point that like the closer we are to it, the more likely we are to connect.
yes. Awesome.